It's a beautiful day in the DMV area, and we're very fortunate to have Ingrid Vaicius this afternoon, an owner of Bakt by Ingrid, which is a cookie company, and also a wellness coach. Ingrid, welcome. Tell us about yourself.
So I'm originally from Bogota, Colombia. I moved here a long, long time ago for college and then had a career in foreign policy, local government. I actually worked for Arlington County government for a few years, doing communications and emergency management communication. And then about 4 years ago, I decided to get into health and wellness coaching for women in leadership. And when I talk about health and wellness, I'm not just talking about what food you eat and how much you exercise. There's a huge component around mindfulness, around what you're thinking, what you're feeling, how you prioritize your time, how you focus on the things that matter to you. All of that is a more holistic approach to it.
Part of what you offer is food, but it's a very specific type of food.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you're the owner of a company known as Bakt by Ingrid.
Bakt by Ingrid is an extension of the health and wellness. So when I first started, I was working with a couple of clients who had genuine food sensitivities and allergies, and they were really having a hard time finding things that they enjoyed, right, that were good for them. In the DC area, the market for vegan, gluten-free products is very small. So there was definitely space for it. And I've always made these cookies. I've made them for the longest time. And whenever I would have clients sign up to work with me in the health coaching, I would send them a welcome package with some of the cookies. And so I knew that they were very well received.
For the amateur at home who's dabbling with a little bit of veganism, they're constantly looking for substitutes for certain ingredients.
Absolutely.
I'm going to pull up a few things, and I'd love to get your take on what options people may have.
Mm-hmm.
So here we see milk. What might be an option for some?
So for milk, there are a ton of options. I would say look into coconut milk if you want something that's a little more, it's richer and more high in good fats. Or you can do almond milk and cashew milk. They're all wonderful. You can get them at the store. My tip is always to look at the ingredients, and the less ingredients on the list, the better. But nowadays we have so many alternative milk options.
So here we have eggs, which is a staple in cakes and I think also cookies, right?
So yeah, my cookies don't have any eggs, but for a lot of the cakes or brownies, I would say the best thing you can do is get some flax meal, and you can get that at the grocery store. It comes with ground flax seeds, and use about half a tablespoon to a tablespoon with 3 tablespoons of water, and let it sit for about 10-15 minutes. That will give you this gel-like substance that basically is the equivalent of 1 egg. So with butter, I would say my number one substitute is coconut oil. Coconut oil, it will, there's some that are refined and then the unrefined. One of them will have a little bit of a coconut flavor. A lot of the other one will be a little bit more neutral, but you can replace that 1-to-1 in your baking.
And these are all handy little tips.
Exactly.
How to substitute and still have a flavor, but without the emphasis on dairy.
Exactly, and it'll be just as flavorful. And what I tell people is just experiment with it, because I think that once we get into the kitchen and start playing around, you realize that it's not as daunting as it may seem. Just start simple. So if you want to make a cake, there are so many sites, and right at the top of my head, I can think of a woman who has been doing vegan and gluten-free baking for a long time, and it's called Alana's Pantry. And she has really simple, vegan, I don't know if vegan, but definitely gluten-free, anyone who's in the paleo, keto lifestyle, she has great options, and they're simple. So that's a good starting point for you to kind of get the basis down, and then you can start experimenting.
Oh, I'm starting to get hungry. Now, the cookie business is really an offshoot of your mainstay. Tell us a little bit about the coaching.
Yeah.
So tell us about what services you offer.
I work with a lot of women, and they've worked so hard for such a long time, and then they reach this point in their career where they can actually have a huge amount of impact and really influence, but then they realize that they're sick, that they're tired, and they're verging on the point of burnout. And I think it is such a shame, because it is so valuable to have women at the table, women in leadership, making choices, using their management style. So my passion is really to help them navigate all the way in a way that feels practical and doable. And I offer one-on-one coaching, so it's personalized 3 to 6 month programs. And my goal is that within those 3 months or those 6 months, we're able to get you to a place where you know what exactly works for you. So we look at for a good fit. If we're a good fit, then we'll start working and figuring out what are your goals and what are your priorities? Where are you stuck? And what tools can we use that work for you based on where you're at, what your lifestyle looks like, what's realistic, right? And the reason why the programs are 3 or 6 months is because I don't think change happens overnight, and we need to look at what's working really well. Where can we capitalize on that and then add and small changes to see what works. And it takes a little bit of experimenting, right? Because we're all different. And so if we're going to find that perfect combination of what works for you, we need to give it a try and try it out. And all you need is an open mind and a willingness to change, but we need to be able to play around with what works best for you, whether it's stress management, handling your overwhelm. If you're a business owner, you have a lot going on. How do we prioritize? What makes sense? What is it that you want your life to look like, right? And once we're clear on that, we can start peeling away at the different layers. In a couple of months, I'll be offering a group program. And then, yeah, so that the idea there is that I think that the power of community is really helpful. And when you put a group of women together who are going through similar things, we realize, one, we're not alone. And then how do we learn from each other? But then how do we implement tools that work for our specific circumstances? I always tell people you can be eating really well, exercising every day, but if you're not handling your stress, it's going to catch up with you. The good, like the nourishing diet and the movement is all very important and might prolong it a little bit, but if you're not managing your stress, you're still at some point it's going to catch up to you.
Now you have a podcast on the coaching side.
So we have a podcast called The Big Life, and it's precisely this. This is what we've talked about. It's about how do we go from living a life that is busy all the time and overwhelming and stressful to living a bigger life. One that makes us feel fulfilled, joyful, moves away from strict diets, strict movement, but more of bringing you joy and happiness and reassessing what health and wellness looks like.
Because at the end of the day, health and wellness is number one.
Absolutely.
Everything else, like if you don't have your health, you've got nothing.
Absolutely. And well-being is not something that just happens. It's something that we need to focus on and be intentional about. So I have a lot of people who are like, oh, I'll deal with that later. And that's fine. But working with a coach is not someone who's going to give you all the solutions. We can work on it, but it requires you to prioritize it, put yourself first, and figure out what works for you.
And for women, I think putting themselves number one just seems counterintuitive, because it's always, the household, the food needs to be put on the table by a certain time, the kids need to be fed, need to keep things organized and keep it running.
Absolutely. And it may sound trite, but it's like the airplane mask theory, right? If you're not taking care of yourself, it's going to be very hard for you to take care of others in the way that feels meaningful and joyful, right? And ultimately, you want to live a life where everything you do comes from a good place and not perfect. Life is not about perfect, and I think that that's something that we need to think about a little bit more. But I do think that if you're taking care of yourself, then that is also the message that you're sending out to the world, to your spouse, to your kids, right? You are important, and you need to take care of yourself so that you can be the best version and therefore serve others from a place of wellness and not from a place of stress and overwhelm and resentment.
So tell me about the handles, how people can reach you.
Absolutely. So for my health and wellness, the best way to reach me is on Instagram, and I'm at Ingrid_wellness. And then my website is Ingrid Vaicius, VAICIUS.com. But again, Instagram is the easiest. And for the cookies, it's bakedbyingrid.com online. You can order online. And then also on Instagram, baked_by_Ingrid.
There you have it, folks. We have cookies and we have coaching from Ingrid Vaicius. Thank you, Ingrid, for spending time with us this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to seeing you out on the circuit, on the farmers market circuit. Hopefully, we'll see your cookies out there when this pandemic has passed. And hopefully, you'll have a lot of good business from people who need coaching during this time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.